Hey ladies, so today's question comes from a mom who wrote, how do moms get out the door on time with kids? Every time I think we're ready and I'm finally on time, something happens last minute, like a diaper blowout, a meltdown, or someone can't find their shoes. It feels impossible to be on time for anything anymore. I definitely want to share some things that I have found that has been helpful for me, and I would love to hear if you have any tips while you're watching and listening to this too. But I would say that my first suggestion actually comes from my mom. My mom was a mom to six of us, so I have five siblings, and it seemed like that was one of the things always growing up, that we were always on time. And I knew kind of like when we would go to the same organizations or events and stuff, there were specific families that you just knew always would turn up late. But somehow my mom with six kids still somehow figured how to be on time to where she went. And one of the things that she ended up doing, which I didn't recognize this until much later in my life, is that she would set all the clocks in our home 5 minutes early. So that way, even as we're rushing out the door, she just internally knew, oh, my clock is 5 minutes ahead. I have 5 minutes more time than it actually is right now. And I think that this was such a genius move, because we as kids, we had no idea that the clock was 5 minutes ahead, but she just knew. And so therefore just baked in extra time for wherever we were going, whatever we were doing. And once I became a mom, before I became a mom, it wasn't a big deal. I set all of my clocks to the exact time because I wanted to know exactly what time it was. I didn't need any extra buffer window to get ready or to get out the door. But as soon as I became a mom, I thought back to the fact that, oh yeah, my mom set her clocks ahead 5 minutes. So then I, especially in the newborn stage, would set my clocks around my home 10 minutes early, because I knew that I needed to give myself that extra window of time, because like you said, inevitably something happened. And when you're dealing with a newborn, that requires so much more time and effort to get everything together. Like a diaper blowout, you can't, for me, it was I can't change a diaper in 5 minutes. I need more than 5 minutes. So that's why I would set my clock 10 or 15 minutes more, to give myself a little bit larger of a leeway. Now that I am a little bit out of the baby stage, we definitely still keep that 5 minutes ahead on our clocks, just to give us that extra buffer. The other thing my mom would do is that she would make sure that she would give herself a lot more time than she actually needed to get ready. So, and to get to wherever she was going. So I think one of the nice things about us in our modern age, and that I use all the time, is when I am going to go somewhere, even if I know how to get there, I'm oh, I know it typically takes 20 minutes for me to drive from my house to wherever it is I'm going. I will still Google map it and set the arrival time about anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes early. For an appointments or stuff like that, then I'll probably do 10 to 15 minutes. But if it's somewhere oh, it's a party or get together, that it's okay if I'm 1 or 2 minutes late, then I'll just do 5 minutes earlier than the arrival time. And then because it's taking into account all the traffic patterns, and oh, there's actually construction going on that I had no idea about, then it gives me a better idea of, okay, this is the time that I leave. And then I add more time as a buffer window on top of that. And maybe that just might mean that, hey, we all get in the car, but we wait a few minutes before we actually start driving. We just get settled in. I'm taking the time to pull stuff up on my GPS. Do I have everything that I need in my car? So that's something that I definitely implement, which is something that I really appreciate, being, living in the current day and age where we have resources like Google Maps, because I definitely use it to my advantage. Now, the other thing too is just adding more time than I think that I'll need to get me and everyone else in my family ready. And if we're going somewhere as a family, then obviously I know that my husband is going to be available to help. But let's say I take, 20 to 30 minutes in the morning to get myself ready, hair, makeup, dressed, all the stuff, make sure I have everything. But maybe my kiddos, my cowboys only need 20 minutes. I will bake more time into my calculation of, okay, what time do I actually need to get up? What time do they need to get up? What time do all of us need to be ready? Because inevitably, when the time comes for us to be ready to walk out the door, there's always okay, everyone needs to use the bathroom last minute. Who can't find their shoes? What thing did we forget to grab because we're already out in the car? Or inevitably, our dog takes longer to relieve herself because, she's she's just putzing around, smelling all over the yard, can't figure out where to go. So there are just like aspects of that like add into a lot more time needed to prepare for actually walking out the door if we're hoping to get ready and like be somewhere on time. And the other thing that I also try to keep in mind too is like, okay, what's going to happen if I am late? Now that we are in a season of life where we're taking my kids to school, like before they were homeschooled, so it didn't really matter. Now everything is so much more like, okay, this certain thing has to happen at this time, else I just know that we're going to be late. What's the worst case scenario if they're late? Yeah, there's going to be consequences if they show up late for school. There's going to be consequences for me showing up late to work. Worst case scenario is they're going to get a markup, or I'm going to have a conversation with my boss, but there's going to be so many of those instances that are going to have to happen within a certain time frame before like we actually receive a negative consequence. So in my brain, even though I've like hyped up this like desire of being on time, being early, making sure we have everything we need, like the negative consequence of us accidentally being late by a few minutes, like randomly one day, if I am consistently on time, if I'm consistently early, then that's going to like stick out like a sore thumb, and people are going to know, oh, that's not her norm. That's not their usual. So there's a little bit more grace extended into that if that's part of your normal routine. Now, the other thing I have figured out for just like this whole like week-ish of doing school where all of us has to be out the door at a very particular time, and also like my husband is now going to work full time and is like getting up relatively around the same time. Like, so we're all overlapping of like, hey, we all need to use the bathroom at the same time, or we all need to eat breakfast. And there's just so much going on in the morning. Some simple things that we have been doing is like laying out clothes the night before. Like I have my cowboys figure out, okay, what shirt are you going to wear? What outfit are you going to wear? And combining all of those things and setting it next to their backpack. We have a very specific place in our home where we have put like all the backpacks and lunch boxes. And then what things can I as a mom prep beforehand that I don't have to do last minute? Like I can prep their water bottles. I can prep as much as I can of their lunchbox. Like it's all ready to go in the refrigerator, like how much of my lunch can I prepare and prep? So all I have to do is pull it out of the fridge and put it in my bag before work. Now there's of course some things that you can't do and prep ahead of time. Like I really like taking salads to lunch, but if I've noticed that if I prep a salad too many days in advance, or if I combine my salad, my lettuce with my toppings, by the time I get to work for lunch, it's all like soggy and gross. So I'm just like, that's not pleasant. So I now know, okay, I have to have the time to be able to combine my salad for my lunch that I can't do any other point in the day. So my time in the morning is devoted to doing that task. But as much of the other things that I can do isn't put in that really small crunch window where, okay, there's a very big systematic aspect of things and how they go to make sure we get out on time. So if you're like a new mom in this whole like situation, and you have like maybe a newborn or maybe a toddler and a newborn, and you're trying to get them out to daycare and you're trying to get to work, there's like certain things like, okay, I just pack my bag. I, prep as much of their things. I've also, especially as a new mom having young kids, I always kept a backup outfit and plenty of extra diapers in the diaper bag, that I have as many things prepped and prepared, and then creating a certain routine to how I get ready in the morning. So every morning it generally looks the exact same. Like, okay, this is what I do as soon as I wake up. Then I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this. And creating that same routine with my cowboys has really helped them know, okay, I don't have to then tell them, okay, after you finished your breakfast, go brush your teeth, go, put your clothes on, go, whatever their next thing is, where they then have some responsibility and self-awareness to know like, oh, this is just the routine that right now kind of at the very beginning, like it is a constant reminder, but every time you have to remind your kids, okay, this is what you do next, that takes time from you preparing to actually get out the door. So helping them to also realize and establish like, oh, this is the exact routine of once I do this, then I do this, then I do this, then I do this, helps everything run super smoothly. And then you can evaluate, okay, what didn't quite work out, or, oh, like it just happens like when they're ready for this, like let's say brushing their teeth, but you're over here preparing their lunch boxes, like you can't just easily step away. So maybe instead, when they get to the point where they're ready to brush their teeth, maybe that's when you have just finished whatever task that you're doing, like fixing your hair or whatever. So then it's a natural breaking point that doesn't slow up the rest of the morning routine. So some of that, of course, is going to take a lot of trial and error. And then that's why like baking in all of this extra time into your schedule is really important. Like some things that I will even do is I'll set my alarm way earlier than I know that I actually need to be up, because sometimes when I wake up, and this annoys my husband to no end, is like I know, like, okay, let's say I should be awake by 5, but maybe I'll set my alarm again for like 5:30 and then, or like 5:15 and then 5:30, but 5:30 is the exact time that I know that I absolutely have to get up to make sure that I have enough time in the rest of our day to get them to school, to get me to work, to get everything else and everyone out the door where they need to be in a way that doesn't necessarily feel rushed. I have learned from my experience of, if I feel rushed in the morning, then I'm taking that entire experience throughout the rest of my day, and it will feel like I'm constantly trying to catch up and catch up and catch up and catch up. Like I'm always consistently behind. And that like fight or flight, like stress mechanism in my body, I can feel that it just hasn't like completed the cycle where it's like, okay, you don't have to be rushed anymore, based off of how I start off my morning, which is why sometimes I'll set my alarm much earlier than I actually need to be. I really like kind of having a little bit of space in the morning, and my husband is very much this way too, where he's like, he'll wake up a good 30 minutes before he actually has to start getting ready, so he can just like sit down at the table, drink his coffee, like prepare his mind mentally for what that day has ahead, so that way he's not like, as soon as he wakes up, it's jumping out of the bed, like rushing and pacing yourself to such a high level and high energy, setting that whole tone and mood for the rest of the entire day, because your kids will feel that too. Like if you have this sense of like urgency and rush, they're going to feel this like heightened sense of like stress, even if it's like not negative stress. Like there is some level of stress of like getting everyone out the door on time. So if you are trying to like get out the door at the same time as your husband, and if you only have limited bathrooms, like we thankfully have 2 bathrooms, so that's really helpful. But I also remember growing up as a kid, like there were 8 of us in our family and we had 1 bathroom. So we learned very quickly how to like navigate, okay, who's in the bathroom at what time and what activities that typically are like things that you prepare and do in the bathroom that don't actually have to take place in the bathroom. For example, like preparing my hair and makeup. Like when I went to school as a young, like, I don't know, I was about to say young child, but I wasn't that young when I started wearing makeup. Like in high school, for example, like I learned, okay, like I'm going to do my hair and makeup in my bedroom in front of my own mirror, so that way I'm not crowding the bathroom for everybody else that actually has to get in and use the bathroom, because that's the only area in the house that they can do those activities, where I can do my hair and do my makeup anywhere else in the house that has a mirror. So figuring those things out as well with my husband and I, and like that's why I say like sometimes you have to go through this entire routine of figuring out what is the routine, but also where in your whole morning schedule do you need to fit and make adjustments, so that way it can become very systematic and you don't necessarily have to waste all of that time and energy in the morning mentally preparing all this stuff like, hey, I need to get in the bathroom. Oh, someone else is in there. Okay, hurry up. And you're rushing and feeling this like urgency that they're then carrying into the rest of your day, like we already discussed. So if you're also getting ready at the same time as your spouse, is figuring out what things can you actually delegate off to your spouse. I think for us as women, we often carry a large load just like naturally, societally, on ourselves to manage certain things within our family, within our home, that we naturally take upon ourselves when we don't have to naturally take upon those tasks. Like we have someone else in our home to help us with those things, our husband. So for example, I was getting ready the other day and I was, in the bathroom doing my hair and makeup or something else, or maybe I was like filling lunch boxes, but I was in the middle of a task that would have been like really hard to step away from, while we're again trying to get everyone out the door. And my son comes to me and he's like, Mom, can you help me brush my teeth? And like, my husband is also available and is not doing something in the same, like with the same urgency, that came out wrong. Not that he wasn't doing something important or urgently that was important for us to get out the door, but he had a lot more availability to help my son, yet my son was coming to me because I typically help him with that task. And so realizing, like, my first default response was to be like, okay, I'll help you in a minute, and then like rush and hurry and finish whatever it is I'm doing. Well, as a mom, I also need to learn that to ask for help. And this is something that I think, like, if we're also evaluating running our home as a company, which I'm trying to get more so in the mindset of doing, where I'm comfortable delegating tasks out to the person that either has the best skill for those tasks or the best availability and bandwidth for those tasks. Because again, I have naturally taken on a lot of these responsibilities onto myself and have held myself to such a high standard that it's like, okay, I don't need to necessarily be sacrificing myself into the ground to run the efficiency of our home, that I have someone else with me in the same situation that I can also take advantage of their skills and talents and availability to help me with these things. Like, we as a business owner would not expect the CEO of a company to take care of all of the same things as and all of the tasks of that company. No, that business owner, that CEO would be delegating tasks off to other people in their company. And we need to take that kind of same approach, because I think naturally we are not geared to do so, or at least I'll speak for myself. I am not naturally geared to do so. And so I realized in that task, I was like, in that situation, I was like, oh, I'm busy doing something, but here is my husband who has a little bit more availability to help my son with that task. And then delegating that task by asking, hey, can you help our son brush his teeth? So there's this, I think, again, as moms, that we take certain responsibilities upon ourselves and we don't always like recognize in the moment, because there's so many other things that we're juggling, to say, okay, is there someone else that can help me in my home? Whether it's a spouse, whether it's another child that is a little bit more older or responsible. Even just having your kids, like my kindergartner, having him pick out his clothes ahead of time and setting them next to his backpack where we have like our to-go station. Like, all of those things are responsibilities that I can delegate to him. Like, he can grab his socks, he can grab his shorts, he can, pick out his own shirt. I don't have to necessarily manage that task by giving it to him. And that's one less thing that I have to take care of while we're trying to get all of these things coordinated to be able to get out the door on time. And we can really like bring a lot of these like aspects into all of these other parts of our life too. Like, it doesn't just have to be like, let's just get out the door on time. Like, that is the main like context of our conversation. But when we take those things where we release the responsibility on ourselves and give them to other people in our home that are just as capable of doing those things, then that frees us up to then take care of the things that only we can take care of, or the things that make sense for us to take care of. Like, when my family and I, when we are getting out the door, there are certain things that my husband takes care of in the morning before our sons get up. There are certain things that I take care of in the morning before our sons get up. And then there are certain things that we're like, okay, we as a family are taking care of, and we're taking care of individually, but also making sure that everyone is ready to get out the door. And those responsibilities, of course, are going to change as seasons change, as your kids become more responsible. But it's like, are you being willing to even ask and willing to delegate those tasks instead of requiring them on you, and then you're carrying all of the burden and all of the weight for not being somewhere on time because you haven't taken the time or released the responsibility from yourself to be the one solely responsible for getting you and your family out the door on time. So those are kind of like my thoughts about this whole, like, can you get out the door on time? How do you get out the door on time? But now it's your turn. I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts and perspective on this conversation. And if there's certain things that you have found to be super helpful, I would love if you would help us continue this conversation in the comments. But until then, I hope that we'll hang out again soon.